The other day, I was walking through the store, one of the stores, I can't even remember which one. Um, and I came across this mermaid. This one. Now, it's these bones here are kind of very fictitious. They aren't very realistic whatsoever. Some of the other bones are okay, but then like the back is very weird. And I do have one of these that I got from the dollar store last time for my previous project. I purchased a couple just in case I messed up. So what I've decided to do today is make a combination of the two because I do want to make a mermaid. I just would like to incorporate this one instead of this one.
I've got a couple of different possibilities running through my mind. One is to cut this here and then cut this completely off and stick it together there. Or the other thing is cut around this hip bone and cut her like around up here somewhere and then run it in the similar fashion as this is up there. In my previous video, I complained about how big the head of this one was. And look, it's almost the same size as this other one here, yet this one's significantly larger. It's better to have more than not have enough. And so for right now, I'm going to cut this up here at the top, and I'm going to try to cut around the hip bone so that I have this part of the spine. Wow, this one's significantly much harder than the other one to cut than this one. Okay, so I've got it all cut up and I want this, I decided. So I want the hip bone to blend in with this piece there. I'll rip the legs off in just a sec. But basically that's kind of what I'm aiming for down there, where everything's just going to be all flush. It's kind of hard to do that with it. So all that's going to become one piece. I tried pulling the legs out. They just do not give. So we're just going to snip them off. And oh, it's the other way. I want all the cut up parts inside. I'm trimming the spine bones just a little bit because they followed this pattern all the way down here, and I felt like they were just kind of too wide. So right now I've just been kind of trimming them up a little, and I'm doing my best to kind of keep them looking like bones. My plan is to cover these up, but I also don't want them to look very odd. I think that's going to look a little better. When I put this together like this, fish are actually like their spine's more like that. So to kind of give more of a realistic fish vibe, I'm going to take the pieces that I cut off and I will be hot gluing them on the back here. I've just organized them here tallest to shortest and just applying some glue with my awesome pink glue gun. I need to retire this thing. It's so old, but I couldn't find my other one. Oops. Okay, so there it is. It's not exactly perfect. This one just kind of seems to be a little off, but for the most part, it'll do. And so it will, let me turn its head. It will go like that now. Like in my previous video with the ferry, I gotta cut the speaker out of here. So I need to take a screwdriver and pop these screws out so that I can access the speaker that's in here and cut it off and remove it. This one actually fell out on its own just by opening it up. It wasn't even stuck inside there, so that was pretty convenient. And for the last one, I just cut the wires. Nothing special. They're pretty thin wires, so I'm collecting those little speakers, it seems like. What I just did there was I marked this because that's how much I'm going to be removing off of the skull. And instead of me just saying constantly that I did this in my previous video, or to go check my previous video with the fairy about what I did there, I'll probably just put a link in the description below, and we'll just move forward. While I have everything torn apart, I probably should figure out how I'm going to position the arms. Before that, I'm going to quickly cut these off. I need these. It's so hard to get in to some of these areas with this. I'm still uncertain as to how I'm going to position the arms, but I know I do want them cut off because I do plan to make the reposition them to a point where I can't just heat them up with the heat gun. I didn't show it in the last video, but this is the tool that I use to shrink and cut out this space here so that the skull can not be so large. Now I'm just taking my heat gun and I'm straightening out the parts of the ribs that I cut off from the bigger skeleton to make this shape here. So I need to straighten this out, and then I will also be straightening out the hands since I'm right here on the floor and not on my desk, because my desk is made of glass and I always worry about like dropping my pliers or something and breaking my desk. So it's just while I was here on the floor, I just decided to just do this as well. Ow. Okay, so those two pieces are now done and they're flat. Well, as flat as they can be. This one kind of warped a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, so this one's got a slight curve. I don't know if it'll zoom in. There we go. So we've got a slight curve there, and then all the fingers have been readjusted. This one has a little bit more exaggeration than the other one, but yeah, I think this is what I want. I didn't want them completely positioned in a 90-degree angle, but they have slight curvature now. I'm going to begin gluing the head first. Okay, now that that tiny bit has positioned that, I can start actually doing the rest, all the way around this. Probably on the inside for the most part. The back of the skull's all glued back together, so I'm going to quickly assemble this. And then I'll move on to gluing these to the hips. I did that and I realized I didn't like that, so I actually pulled them back off. I want these to come out of where the legs used to actually be. I'm still debating on how I'm going to do the arms, so instead of just sitting here thinking about it, I'm going to glue the tail. Okay, so I filled in the entire cavity in there as well, And then back here, I reinforced all that, and in there, put some glue as well. So at this point, hopefully this does not go anywhere. I don't feel like it will, but yeah. So now I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the hands. After going back and forth, I just settled on crossing them. Eventually, I hope to get them something closer to this though, but I need them to move freely. That way when I put the latex all over that's going through the skin, I can put it on here and the arms won't stick together. I think I might put hair on this. I was originally going to do like a fish type fin above the head, almost like in a mohawk type style. However, I feel that most mermaids are recognized because outside of them having a fish body, half of a fish body, I feel they have hair. I don't know. I'm going to think about this. You know what? Hair it is. So instead of me making that fin up there, I'm going to just stain it all right now. Okay, so right now I'm just using this stain here, which is English chestnut. That's the color. It's the same one I used in my previous video. I'm not the most worried that the tail won't blend with the color of this skeleton of up here, because I do plan to cover most of this up with I guess the material that would be used as flesh. However, in the areas that it does show, I do want it to match at least somewhat. Applied it as close to how you would apply paint as possible, but still utilizing the stain techniques. So I did wipe off some of it and then reapplied it and so on and so forth until it kept getting darker and darker. I've done this a couple of times, and so I'm gonna just let it dry now, and hopefully it's but it's much closer than it was before. Before it was definitely like, you know, they were very different colors. That was the bone up here, and then this yellowish color was the bone at the bottom. So they were very, very different. Okay, so I've added these, more of these, but on the elbows, because I guess if you really think about a fish, they technically have 4 of them. They have fins at the bottom and then fins like down the spine, but what would be technically their arms are the 4 on each side. And so I felt that adding those would kind of be more cohesive with a piece. Also, I've made several passes now, and I feel it now actually looks like all one, instead of having this be one color and that be a different color and have that discoloration difference. Now it just kind of blends in. So I'm pretty happy with it. However, I did have to lay down the stain fairly thick, and so some areas are still curing right now. Before I start applying the skin, I have this flower, and this was part of it, so it kind of went like that. I've cut it up, but I need to take these things off of this, and this one too, and then this is what I'll use as the fins. I'm unsure if I want to keep the tail. Originally, I kind of planned to put these on here and have the rib part of the tail start showing through. However, I don't think it will, and so just because it's not ribbed enough, I've tried kind of digging it out a little bit here. I did that off camera, and then that's why you kind of see it still wet there, because I had to put more stain on there after I tried to dig in. However, it didn't really make too much of a drastic change when I put these pieces on here because of the fabric. So I'm going to try to apply it like this first, and if I do have a couple more of these flowers, so if I totally ruin this, I'll just cut it off and then I'll rebuild the tail. Yeah, so you can't tell that it's ribbed in here. The texture of the petals from the way the flower was made does kind of give the effect. So I'm going to just go with that. I just have to do this pattern on the backside. I wasn't 100% sure as to what I was going to do and how I was going to incorporate fins on these bones here. So after a little bit, I've kind of set them up this way. I think that'll be fine. The only thing is that these are very flat on the back. They're not rounded, kind of like how the rest of the skeleton is. So I will have to reconstruct these on the back end, but all this is going to be covered with flesh. So I'll probably just run flesh on the back here, and that should imitate the same thing as the front. I just kind of wish that this one wouldn't roll back so much. Like I want it to roll back kind of like this one, but this one just like goes all the way back. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. It honestly looks so good right here. I kind of don't even want to continue. But yeah, maybe I'll just get another one, and later on I'll make a version of just a skeletal one that looks like this. But yeah, it surprisingly looks really good here at this point. These are the colors that I've mixed in here. I'm hoping that once I add the latex, that I can end up with a bluish tint once it all dries and everything like that. On the fairy that I did, the color still didn't come out as white as I would have hoped, and so I ended up having to run just white acrylic paint over the piece once everything dried. At worst, I'll just have to run like a light bluish tint all over the piece, but I'm hoping that by mixing these and adding just a bit more color than I had before, that this should do it. It came out with a bluish tint. We'll just see once it dries if it actually stays like that. Some cotton. Tweezers. All right, let's begin. Let's hope that the current masterpiece I have now does not get ruined by this. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I will continue because I want to set the arms down on his chest before I apply anything on the arms. A few quick takeaways. I probably should have left a little more of the hip of the pubic bone and you know, the pelvic bone and everything like that exposed. It would have been nice to be able to tell a little bit better that this was human and kind of started to I guess blend into an animalistic function, I guess skeletal structure. So that there, and then over here, maybe around this area or even this area, I probably should have left more of an opening, kind of like how I have here. And maybe it's kind of a little dark right now. I'll probably have to turn on my lights soon. But like there, I probably should have done that over here somewhere so that you could tell that, again, that the skeletal structure was that of a fish instead of a human. Okay, got some light on this. But as far as the blue goes, I do like how it's began to set. Maybe it's a little too blue right here on the head, so I might make a few more passes with the lighter color. It kind of streaked. Even though I had it all together, the bottom had more blue than the top. You can kind of see like yellow areas there. So as I was like laying it down, I got this like this streaking, which is great. Now I won't have to make my own passes with the brush. Now that it's not wet, I'm going to start applying some on the arms while I can like move them around and everything like that. Also around the back of the fin area, and then I'll flip it over. Currently have it elevated and upside down so that I can apply all this while the arms are not really messed with. If for any reason they get a little stuck or anything like that, I'm going to have to get creative on how to get them off from whatever they get stuck on so it doesn't rip any of this off. You know, any of the flesh that I've put on there, I guess. Okay, so I just need to wait for this to dry and adjust the arms and so on and so forth. And let's see how it turns out once it's all dry. The thing that takes the longest with this process is usually the curing of the material, the latex and stuff. But now that we're there, I've kind of just looked to see how it would look with hair. And I've decided that that is what it was missing. Originally, when it didn't have the flesh, like the latex and stuff on it, it didn't really look right. But now I feel like it would not look right without hair. So I'm going to figure out how to apply this. I'm thinking just applying light hot glue up here and like in the areas where I want it to stick, and just kind of pressing it on there. As long as the glue is very, very thin and light, it should just blend into the material that's already here. 10-10, I do not recommend this method. Maybe you can do like latex or something, light layer of latex, and then put the hair on. But trying to glue it on is not like the best. One, you'll burn yourself like I did. And in my struggles to try to get the hair to line up, I totally did not hit the record button, or you would have seen that. But there's like kind of like a hard spot there from the glue, from the hot glue, even though I tried to make it super thin. So, you know, the hair will cover it, but yeah, there's another hard spot here. Just kind of little things like that that you probably wouldn't see if you just kind of applied latex or something. At this point, the hair is just, I'm just going to cut this part off, which is just kind of maybe just pieces that have kind of been longer than the others. This hair used to be dreaded at one point, and so that's why it's kind of like this. So I'm going to just trim this, or maybe, yeah, it's still kind of too long, so I'm going to trim right here. Okay, so outside of that, this is done, and I'm still able to reach the button. Said that weird. So the eyes on this one are a little more fitting than the other one, I feel, just because it's flesh is a bluish color, so it matches the eyes a little better.
We're gonna call this done for now. And so thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.